Hello everyone and welcome back to the World Cement podcast. My name is David Bizley and I'm the senior editor of World Cement, and in this episode I'm joined by Dr. Andrew Minson, Concrete and Sustainable Construction Director for the Global Cement and Concrete Association, or GCCA. Hello everyone, sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to take a moment to remind you to register for World Cement. It's free of charge and gives you access to the latest issues of World Cement, both in print and online. Every issue comes packed full of regional analysis, technical articles, project case studies, and the latest industry news. Simply head over to worldcement.com, click the magazine tab and register today. It's as simple as that. Happy reading. So, Andrew, welcome to the World Cement podcast. It's fantastic to have you here with us. I know you've got some exciting new developments to share with our audience today.
Well, David, thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. So let's kick things off then with a bit of an introduction. Andrew, for those who are still uninitiated, who exactly are the GCCA and what is it that you guys do?
Yeah, the GCCA, the Global Cement and Concrete Association, was founded in 2018. It came out of the Cement Sustainability Initiative under the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. That entity, the WBCSD, has over 250 companies. Companies within that coalesce around common themes, and the cement members coalesced around their common sector, and that coalescing became more and more formal. This Cement Sustainability Initiative did some key things like creating the GNR transparent annual reporting. It created an EPD tool. It created some other assets. And the CSI, they grew up and created the GCCA, which enabled far more members to join. We now have well over 40 producing companies from pretty much every country around the world, represent the majority of industry. And our primary focus is around sustainability.
Okay, excellent. Now, on that note, you recently launched a low-carbon rating system, or LCR, for cement and concrete. Tell us a bit about the thinking behind this initiative. What's the aim behind it, and who's it designed to help?
Yeah, the fundamental question that we sought to answer is what is low carbon? What is green cement? And that question has been posed a lot. And the answer to that question is fundamental to things like low carbon procurement. So we've got a global roadmap. There are many country roadmaps to get to net zero by 2050. And those roadmaps include policies, and they all include low carbon procurement. And beyond our sector, low carbon procurement is seen as a key driver towards decarbonisation. And to have low carbon procurement, you need to be defining, what is low carbon? And our rating system is designed to support that process of defining what low carbon is.
Okay. Excellent. So before we get into exactly how the LCR works, tell us a bit about the process of how you set up the LCR. What did that entail? And did you happen to collaborate with any other organizations during this process?
Yeah, we absolutely did collaborate. At the outset, the direction our members gave us was don't create something new, try and work with others because there's already thinking going on. And the G7 presidency in 2022 was held by Germany. They commissioned the IEA to do some work on achieving decarbonisation in the steel and cement sector. And part of that was they came up with definitions for low carbon steel and definitions for low carbon cement production. That was all in terms of production. And at that same time, another entity, the Clean Energy Ministerial, which are governments, they all joined together to collaborate. They had an initiative called Industrial Deep Decarbonisation Initiative that's still underway, which is all about low carbon procurement in steel and cement and concrete. And they looked at the IEA output as a starting point. And because so much of our products, cement and concrete, is procured directly by government or through government agencies or funding, we felt that this IDDI initiative was the right one to join forces with to develop the low carbon rating system.
Okay, excellent. Now, moving to the LCR itself, it provides ratings for products on a scale from AA through to G. Why not just publish the EDP value? Why do we need a letter rating? What does this help with?
It's a great question. And we get that. We have had that question before. And so our rating, so we just come back one step. Our rating system is based on the GWP value from an EPD. Now, in brackets, if for some reason a country is getting GWP values somehow else, we can actually adapt our system to accommodate that. But we strongly recommend using EPDs. If you're doing EPDs and you've got the EPD GWP value, why not just use that GWP value? So primarily it's because the non-expert does not know whether a particular value of GWP is low or high. Is 500? Is 500 good or bad? I've got no idea. I mean, if you're not an expert in the industry, how would you know? And that's true for cement and concrete. Now, for the concrete ratings, there's even additional reasons which are maybe even stronger for why this letter rating is so valuable. So firstly, the letter ratings enable comparison of products of different strengths. So concrete isn't one product. Higher strength concrete will have a higher GWP value. So if you only have GWP values, only an expert would know whether this low strength concrete or this high strength concrete has a good GWP value or not. What is good or bad? Because you'd expect the high strength to have a higher value, but how much higher is it? So the letter ratings enable comparison across strengths. That's really key. Really key, because I'm a structural engineer by training. I was doing real projects for 10 years. One of your decisions as a structural engineer is what strength concrete is the right strength to use. And now that sustainability is more important, part of that question should be around not just the CO2 GWP value of that concrete per cubic meter, but if you've got a higher strength concrete, you've got less volume of concrete. So how do you make that trade-off? So to be able to compare different strengths is important. Now, secondly, our system uniquely enables comparison through the letter ratings between countries where the EPD standards are different. So North America and Europe have different standards for EPDs, and therefore you cannot compare an EPD GWP value from North America to Europe. But if you turn it into a letter in the USA, if you turn it into a letter in Europe, you can then compare those letters because our methodology has the adaptation built into it for those different countries.
Right. Okay. Excellent. And looking at those categories themselves, how did you sort of calculate those brackets? And I suppose turning that on its head, how can producers, or how do they determine the rating of their products when using these categories?
Okay. So the AHG, they all have their bands defined by the GWP value that you read off the EPD. The manufacturer, the producer can just get their GWP value from their EPD, look at the table and go, this product is a C or this product is a D. It's a very straightforward process. We just come back one step. Why have we got those number of categories? Why do we not have fewer or more? We actually just took the steer from what the IEA published in May 2022. They have an A to E rating with a near zero. And we attributed that near zero a double A because we wanted to have it's just easier. And we added an F and a G at the top, an open-ended G, in order that all products can get a rating. We felt it was really important to get everyone on board with this process. So even if you've got a G, you might not like to publish a G, but you're a G.
But you know where you stand, I think is the key thing.
Yeah, you're in it.
Okay, excellent. And on a related note as well, are these ratings able to take into account sort of future or yet to be fully implemented technologies like CCUS, which is going to be key for reaching those net zero goals?
Yeah, you're right. CCUS absolutely key. And the quick answer, yes, it will, because EPDs will be updated to recognize CCUS. The North American Cement PCI is just soon to come out, and it does exactly that. And we expect all EPDs will do the same. And with other technologies, CO2 being captured into synthetic aggregates and those aggregates being put into concrete, that also will be taken into account in the EPD, and therefore our ratings will therefore also give it credit.
Okay, fantastic. At the launch, you mentioned one of the advantages of the LCR was sort of increased transparency when it came to these kind of products. Can you just explain a bit more about how that exactly is being manifested?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One goes back to your question about why letter ratings. If you've got letter ratings and they're more comprehensible to the non-expert, that gives you more transparency. in itself, rather than just people just publishing numbers which are meaningless to many people. The second bit of transparency is that you will probably get more EPDs being developed, and therefore that itself gives you transparency. And thirdly, in communication, we often read about this is a low carbon product or this is a low carbon cement, and actually by what definition? So this gives a definition. And so therefore, I think there'll be less confusion out in the marketplace, because at the moment, people are not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes or be confusing. If there's no distinction of what low carbon is, three people can say their products are low carbon, but they actually mean all slightly different things.
Okay. And forgive me for being cynical to a degree, but how are you verifying that producers actually apply the correct rating?
No, that's great. That's great. So the fundamental verification isn't for us. It's the EPD methodology. EPDs, by definition, they are third-party verified, and therefore that's the value. And also EPDs have to be in the public domain. We've already seen the first implementation of this is in Germany. And so the Cement Association in Germany, VDZ, they are running effectively a certification, a labeling system. So they're doing that checking for Germany for the cement industry. And it will depend on different countries whether that formality is applied as well, or whether the EPD verification and publication together with side by side with the rating publication is sufficient in that country.
Okay. And with the aim of making this a global rating system, how exactly are you achieving the balance of comparability between regions while still allowing for regional adaptation?
Yeah, exactly. We've been involved with it. I've already mentioned the date, May 2022. Lots of stakeholder engagement, discussions with people who developed systems just for their own country or even sub-country. I'm increasingly convinced that we've got the balance right. In some respects, we're doing very little. We're just providing this AA to G rating. What we're not doing is saying, what is the current CO2 performance, average CO2 performance, or what's the current performance of the best 20 percentile concrete in a particular region or sub-region? We're not doing any of that. And we're not even saying what the target should be. Should you be a B? Should you be a C? We're not doing that either, because all of that is local. What we're providing is the foundation that underpins those things. And it underpins it by being global and static over time, so that your performance, the average performance, the baselines and the benchmarks within a region, within a city, the north of a country, they will hopefully be improving over time. And you'd expect the targets or the thresholds by which government policy is implemented to be more aggressive over time with lower CO2. All of that will change over time. But if it's overlaid on something that is static, which is constant and global, it enables constant reporting. It enables constant progress to be understood. It enables an international contractor to say, actually, for my projects, I'm wanting to have this rating going forward. And that then can be adopted within the locally by the country in a more appropriate way. So we think we've got that balance right between local and global. And what we're doing is we're avoiding proliferation of schemes where who knows what an ABC is, because which.
Okay, excellent. You mentioned that one of the other benefits of the LCR was to drive demand for greener products. And following on that theme, how important would you say it is to educate the general public about the choices made when it comes to construction materials? And I suppose, what kind of things could the industry be doing to further that cause?
Having worked in this industry a long time as a designer, it's one of those things that the built environment is something they take for granted until something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, I was recently in Dresden and the bridge collapsed there last September. And it was really interesting to hear the mayor speak about that, and Germans who were at the conference who hadn't been to Dresden before. I was in London when there was a catastrophic fire in 2017, where over 70 people got killed. When things go wrong in the built environment, then the public pay attention. And the primary thing that we must not forget in the drive to decarbonize the built environment, which is absolutely important and absolutely imperative, we must not forget resilience. And it's not just resilience to climate exacerbated risks, such as wind and higher rainfall and higher heat and the problem of heat stress. It's also the things that we've known for a long time and designers have been knowing for a long time in terms of fire safety and and robustness and protection against disproportionate collapse. We must not forget all those things because they are what society is relying on us in the construction sector to deliver. Go back to your question, how much they need to know about the carbon choices. I think probably the general public needs to know less about that. But there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people involved in the complexity of the construction build environment who value chain, who need to understand more. And we've definitely got a role to educate them. I know the professional institutions are doing a great job in increasing their sustainability training and the modules and professionalism. And at university level, the sustainability now in terms of the education is, and it has for 10, 15 years where I am in the UK, and I'm sure it's being rolled out elsewhere around the world in a much more comprehensive way to raise that knowledge base and that language, that the understanding of the language of sustainability, to put carbon in the middle of what is traditionally the triangle of time, cost, and quality. So time, cost, and quality is what designers are always brought up having to deliver. That's what clients want. The clients make decisions. Is the quality more important than the cost? Can I pay more to get a high quality? Carbon needs to be in the middle of that. Carbon has to be in the middle of that. And one of the ways that can be driven through is through low carbon procurement. And to do that, we need to know what low carbon means in terms of whole project. And we need to know what low carbon means in terms of product. And that's what our LCR is doing in terms of cement and concrete.
Okay, excellent. Well, then in order to reach net zero, the cement and concrete industries are going to have to embrace some form of innovation across basically all of their processes. And obviously developments like the LCR are one example of the GCCA supporting innovation in these industries. How else have you guys been working to promote innovation across the cement and concrete production sectors?
One of the first things we did when we were founded was set up the GCCA Research Network with over 40 academic institutions from around the world and about 30 industrial partners. They are doing fundamental research to decarbonize the sector. And the collaboration that you get between research departments in completely different regions around the world, building on each other's shoulders. I know that's what the scientific community broadly is supposed to do. And we've seen it actively done and really, I think, probably accelerated or given a boost by having this research network and with the industrial partners right there informing what is going to be a benefit to industry to decarbonize. So that's called the research network under our umbrella of Innovandi, our innovation. So the other bit that's under this umbrella of Innovandi is what we call our open challenge. It's open because anyone in the world can accept the challenge, and we issue a new challenge every year, which is a subset of how the sector can decarbonize. It might be new materials, it might be on CCUS, and those startups that invite startups to enter the challenge, and those startups then present to the industry and consortia who think that startup have got a great idea, who will benefit from their support. It might be access to facilities, access to expertise, materials, cash, all those things that the startup might need to go on to the next stage to bring their great idea to fruition to help decarbonize. So those are the two big things. And through that open challenge with the startups, we've obviously made relationships with many startups, and we've now got what we call an entrepreneur network as well under this Innovandi banner.
Okay, excellent. Now, taking a moment to zoom back out a little bit to cover the cement industry's decarbonisation process as a whole, and then those listeners who joined us at Envirotech back in March will recall I asked you this question previously. But for those who weren't able to join us, is the cement industry currently on track to reach its net zero targets by 2050? How are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well, I think. Can more be done? Yes. When you try and track things, you often look in the rear vision mirror and say, well, what have we achieved? You sometimes try and look forward, say, what are the conditions that we're coming across that are going to help us improve our performance? I think if I just did a looking forward bit, I said earlier, the roadmaps, not only are they talking about technology and the contribution of each technology to get to zero, but they also talk about the policy enablers. And that's what we look forward to. Where are these policy enablers that are going to enable the industry to deliver? And the policy enabling, what we're seeing ahead of us, probably isn't. It's a mixed bag. There's aspects that aren't as promising as they should be. So I'll give you an example. We're an industry that where we've got the right policies, we support society in delivering a huge amount of treatment of unrecyclable and unreusable waste. But where the policies are not supportive, the percentage of energy we require that comes from waste is in single digits compared to 80 or 90% in some kilns. And that's because the policies aren't right. So looking forward, we need to get more policy. We need to get the policies right in those areas to support us. We've been talking about low carbon ratings today. One of the policy supports we need is procurement, and our rating system will support that. I think that the biggest encouragement, go to the green cement technology tracker that we do together with Lead IT. It's called the Green Cement Technology Tracker, and look at that and see what CCUS projects are progressing around the world and what calcined clay projects are progressing around the world, and you'll be really encouraged. I think that's the best example of encouragement you can have, because the CCUS, that's the big ticket item, and real progress has been made on that. And since we launched our roadmap in 2021, that's, I think, the most exciting developments.
Okay, fantastic. And then to close, and on that theme of looking ahead a little bit, the GCCA's 2050 net zero roadmap, as we mentioned a bit earlier, breaks down the required contributions from a range of technologies and processes. What would you say is the most impactful thing that a cement producer can do today in order to maximize their emissions reduction over the long term?
Actually, maybe it's just because it's currently on the top of my mind, but if the producer is outside Europe, I would say it's work with their other cement producers and their national association to get change in policy to allow or enable greater treatment of societal waste in their kiln. In Latin America, our colleagues at FISM are doing a great job to try and achieve this. And if you get waste treated in the kiln rather than landfilled, the amount of methane that you can save, the methane that comes out of the landfill, is enormous. If you're in Africa, a lot of this waste is just open waste burning, and and the waste is a blight on society. If you get the policies right, then that waste can be not causing that damage that it's currently causing, and it can be used in a cement kiln with the added benefit that it's replacing fossil fuels, which would otherwise be burned in the cement kiln. So that, I think, would be the number one thing. But maybe I should say the number one thing is get behind these low carbon ratings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, Andrew, I think on that note, that about wraps things up for this episode of the World Cement Podcast. So thank you so much for joining me and for telling us all about the low carbon rating system and those other areas of the GCCA's activities.
David, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And if you'd like more information on what the GCCA is up to, simply head over to www.gccassociation.org. That's www.gccassociation.org. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the World Cement Podcast. Do keep an eye on your notifications and inbox, as there are more episodes on the way. And if you do like the content we're producing, please show your support by subscribing, rating, and reviewing where possible. Until next time, goodbye for now. Hello everyone, I just wanted to take a moment to remind you to register for World Cement. It's free of charge and gives you access to the latest issues of World Cement. Simply head over to worldcement.com, click the magazine tab and register today.